Hey,
Rebecca.
everybody.
We're live.
We
Hey,
are
is
live.
that Patrick?
Patrick, can you say hi?
Is that
Can you
Patrick?
say
Say
woof
hi,
woof?
Biscuit.
Woof woof.
Say hi,
Woof woof.
Biscuit. Biscuit's looking like where? Actually, Biscuit's like, where should I look? Where's my camera? What's my
Hey,
motivation?
Biscuit. Biscuit, look at me. Go
What
turn the light
Biscuit?
on. Do that.
What Biscuit?
So if it's noon, it must be Tuesday. It
Yes,
must be April
the
1st.
crunch. Oh, it is April 1st. That's right.
April 1st. Happy April
Yeah.
Fool's Day.
Happy April Fool's Day. You know, I have a couple friends. This is actually their birthday, which is kind of interesting.
It's interesting. I think are the days of like April Fool's Day tech pranks over?
Yeah, oh my god. I've seen, I think I must have counted like five or six this morning on LinkedIn.
Oh,
I'm
you
like,
did.
okay,
Okay.
guys. Yeah, I'm like, guys, really?
Well, it's interesting because I was looking like all of the fake movie trailers that are out there now that are
Oh,
all
it is.
AI generated. It's like
Really?
not as jokes, but it's like folks are just putting them out there. And so I wonder, just
Yeah.
with as much fake stuff as there is out there now, like, do we
Yeah.
not do April Fool's pranks anymore? What did you hear on LinkedIn? I need to catch me up on April
Oh my
Fool's
god.
pranks.
So, our friend Alan Lepovsky, the one, Mobius acquires OpenAI. I was like, that was the one that stood out to me. I was like, oh my goodness. Well, speaking of AI,
Speaking of
so what's
AI, as
what's
one
been
does,
going
as one
on?
does.
Yeah. What's been going on the first few months of the year, huh?
Well, you and I have seen each other a lot. Um,
Yes.
First at IRL.
IRL in Atlanta, where it was snowing in Atlanta. Snowing in Atlanta. That was
Mhm.
the maybe that was the sign that this year was going off in a interesting direction, right?
Right, right. And then Zoho,
Yes, Zoho Day, right?
where it was not snowing in Austin.
It was not snowing in Austin. Although that location was interesting because we flew into Austin and then we drove way outside of Austin
Yeah.
onto some like what resort ranch of some sort. It was kind of a ways
Horseshoe
out.
Horseshoe Bay.
Horseshoe Bay Resort. That's what
Yeah.
it was. Yes, Horseshoe Bay Resort. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Which actually, it's actually a nice resort though. It's really
hmm
nice.
hmm and then TDX, of course.
TDX Salesforce. That's right.
Now,
Which
did
so
you build your own agent at
build
TDX?
yes, build
How
your
did
own
that go?
agent. That was pretty good. And they had so fun. That was interesting. Sort of like conference because I've never been to that one. That's my first time at TDX. The
What?
Trails Bay's Development Conference. Yeah, but it was not as much developer heavy as I thought it would be. There were a lot more end user types there as well too, because everyone's trying to figure out how to build this stuff. So I saw like a wide range of attendees there.
Uh huh. Uh huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and interesting. A lot of kind of ecosystem partners too. I think
Yes.
sometimes sometimes Salesforce has gotten pinged for sort of releasing things before the ecosystem was ready,
Yes, indeed,
or
indeed,
before the
indeed.
ecosystem necessarily knew about it. And I think with
Yeah.
agent, even though they've introduced things really quickly, they've been like really pushing to keep the ecosystem up to speed. So you see folks like, Coastal putting all of their own agents out there already, folks like
Yeah.
Elements Cloud putting their agents out there already. So giving customers a lot more choices beyond just build your own with Agent Force, to have
Yeah.
some folks that have already done kind of some of the heavy lifting for them, even though there's not as much heavy lifting, obviously, with the kind of low code of Agent Force that is with kind of traditional DIY stuff.
Which is why I thought there was like, why usually it's a big developer heavy conference. There were a lot more sort of business, the citizen developers, because of the low code, no code stuff. There were a lot more, yeah,
Right.
attendees across the board that weren't as developer focused. So it was interesting.
Yeah, like a much more citizen.
While this is being verified,
Oh my
please leave
goodness.
the building by the nearest exit or exit stairway.
Is that
Hello.
Use the elevators.
I
is that
think
an
we're having
alarm?
a fire system test in our building.
Wow, really? Oh my
This is
goodness.
really live, folks.
Live TV, guys.
This this
Do
is
you
really
have to
live,
go?
folks.
There has
Do you
I
have to
been
go
believe
for
fire
real?
emergency
I believe
reported
this
in
is
the
a
building.
fire system test. We're just gonna let
While
this
this is
clear. It's
being
okay, Pete.
verified,
It's all right, honey. It's
please
okay.
leave the building by the
It's all
nearest
right,
exit
Biscuit. Don't
or
worry.
exit stairway.
Everything's fine.
Do not
Oh
move
my
the elevator.
god.
It's really live, folks. Look at this. It's okay. It's okay. It's all right.
May
I
have
know
your
they're
attention,
testing
please?
today, but I
Oh,
didn't.
this is live TV, guys. I love it.
There has been a fire
Modern
emergency
buildings,
reported in the
folks.
building.
Modern. It's okay, Pete. It's all right.
While this is being verified, please leave the
All right.
building by
No,
the
we'll
nearest
be
exit
staying right here.
or exit stairway.
Interesting.
Hopefully this will be over in a second.
So, although we're not in real life in the same place, this is definitely real life.
May I have your attention,
In case
please?
you had a question,
May
this
I
is
have
definitely
your
IRL,
attention,
folks.
please?
Yeah,
There has been a fire emergency reported in the building.
of
While
course.
this is being verified, please leave the building by the nearest exit
It's okay.
or exit
It's okay.
stairway.
It's
Do
all right.
not use the elevator.
All right, you're okay.
I love it. I love it.
May I have your attention, please? May I have your attention, please? There has been a fire
okay.
emergency reported in the building. While this is being verified, please leave the building by the
okay.
nearest exit or exit stairway.
We'll just have Patrick
not
show
use
off.
the
Here.
elevator.
Yeah.
Oh, he's just scared. It's okay.
Oh, you scared? No, yeah, that's probably
Yeah.
loud, right? Yeah.
It's okay.
May I have your
It's all right.
attention, please?
He's like, why are we leaving the
There has been
building?
a fire
Oh,
emergency
yeah.
reported in the building. While this is being verified,
It's okay.
please leave the building by the nearest exit or exit stairway.
So Dave,
Do not use
Yes.
let's talk about Enterprise Connect.
Yeah, so we were there's a lot of talk about hybrid work,
Have your
right?
attention, please.
That term came up a lot during Enterprise Connect, hybrid work. Which I thought was because we start hybrid computing, and the hybrid has been sort of a big term, especially since the pandemic, right? But hybrid work in the sense now with AI is a whole different animal. We're talking about augmenting human behavior with AI and agents, and now we're talking about agents now that can think and reason, and actually more referring to agency rather than just sort of chatbot agents. We're going beyond bots now. We're talking about thinking agents, which is interesting.
Verify.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's interesting to see kind of the religious debates coming out now about agentic. What is agentic and what isn't agentic?
Yeah. This is wild. You got it. There
While
you go.
being verified,
This
Oh,
isn't
it's still going.
this isn't a real emergency.
or exit stairway.
It's only a test of the emergency broadcast system. Right?
There you go. There you go. Biscuit, it's your turn. Show us some tricks.
Say hi, buddy.
It's okay. That's it. Biscuit. So anyway, the agentic AI thing I thought was really interesting, and I think we risk, like, there are always those definitional and semantic things that come up whenever there's an emerging area that we're talking about, and
Yeah.
people saying, oh, well, it has to be this, or it's not really
Yeah.
agentic. But I can remember a very short time ago people saying there's a lot of stuff being called AI that's not AI.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? And there's nothing wrong with like good rules-based stuff. There's also nothing wrong with agents running on AI that don't necessarily have the sort of sentience that some people are saying is necessary for it to be truly agentic.
Yeah.
What do you-
Exactly. Yeah. No. Yeah. Because I mean, gosh, I just got an invite from one of our RPA friends the other day for their conference, and I know they've been reeling, right? Because their whole stuff was sort of rules based, workflow. You don't need to think. It's just a bot that's going to assist you. Where now with these thinking agents, these reasoning agents that can actually think for you, or sort of anticipate next steps, right? Those are cool. And those are needed, but we still, I think, need some rule-based stuff, especially for specific industries like financial and so forth. I don't want that agent going wild because I can end up in jail or something. That's yeah, right? Like if the numbers are wrong.
I think too, like the initial wins that we've seen with things like Agent Force, they win when people already have a good process worked out.
Right, exactly.
Right? Like they may be doing RAG to bring in data to get to that right piece of information or customer to answer the question. But by and large, there's still that kind of process mapping that is rules-based that has to happen for us to be successful. Now, one of the things that I've seen that I thought was really interesting is some of the folks that are using conversational to build out those workflows, right? So if you look at what like Elements Code is doing, where it says you can talk through what your workflow is for a process, and it's basically giving you the sort of for lack of a better term, Visio diagram
Yeah.
that we would have.
Busy.
That you
I've
can
heard that
then
word in a
edit.
while.
I know that I just dated myself significantly. Okay. Oh well.
Just don't say FileMaker Pro or anything. No, we're good.
Although I'll tell you, I was talking to Nimble the other day.
Yeah.
Have you talked to Nimble? Those
I think
guys?
I've talked to them recently.
You know,
No.
it's John who started Goldmine back in the day.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah, so they're doing some interesting. Not to get off on a completely different tangent. But
Yeah.
about dating yourself, we were talking about Goldmine and ACT.
Oh my God, ACT. Yes. Oh my God. Yeah, that's back in the day. I mean, 'cause I remember when I first, so backtrack, when I first became an analyst, I was covering messaging, but email. But I was covering Lotus Notes, like Notes Domino.
Domino, remember when Domino came out?
Yes, my number one call used to be Outlook Exchange versus Notes Domino. I swear that was my number one call, and then crept along Gmail, which could like change the game. But I remember those days. It was Notes versus Exchange.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And remember when you had the WAP phone?
Oh my gosh! Yes.
Very exciting stuff. Very
Oh
exciting.
yeah. And I remember one of my colleagues was covering fax. Yeah, so I just dated myself.
Oh my goodness.
Like
Oh, my
that was an
goodness.
actual coverage. Fax. Like
Well, after that fire alarm interruption and our trip down memory lane, maybe we should talk about the future and what Q2 looks like for 2025.
Yes, because I think what we saw in the first 3 months, right, January to March, which my birthday was March, me and Brent, right? But I think we saw AI go from sort of the experimental to sort of more becoming an essential, especially when we're talking about hybrid work. So I'm thinking Q2 we're going to see sort of more of that because most of the announcements that were made in the conferences this year, I think they're coming to fruition or GA in the second quarter for the most part, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're starting to see, well, I mean, ServiceNow just released their Yokohama, right, with their agents. I think what's interesting, though, is, the other conference I was at in the first quarter was HR Tech in Europe.
Oh, how was that?
It was
Because
good. It
I
was good.
want to pick your brain about sort of the AI agent stuff in regards to EX and where that's going.
Yeah, so talking to HR professionals, and obviously this is predominantly Europe, so some different issues around privacy and data and that sort of thing than we see here, but tons of questions about AI, tons of questions about data. But what we did a survey with HR Executive Magazine sort of beginning of the year, and we found that only 13, this is US and Europe, only 13% of HR leaders say their companies are ready for AI. Only 12% say they're ready for the impact of AI on their workforce from an HR perspective.
Really?
And only a little more than a third, 36%, have a policy on the use of generative AI, which to me seemed like if we're getting pretty close to production in using some of these agents and that sort of thing, you would think that a lot more of HR departments would have put together at least some sort of policy on Gen AI's use, because whether they have a policy or not, people are going to use it.
Indeed.
Right? And I think we talk about the guardrails within the technology, and I think we've got to talk about the guardrails within the people and processes as well. So we don't see the sort of things that we saw early on with ChatGPT, where developers are putting source code out there. People are not realizing once their data is in the model, it's in the model.
Indeed. Exactly. Yes, because you're right. So from an employee HR perspective, how do you protect data, privacy? Like that's had to be a big issue internally.
Yeah. And I think too, HR has always been very conservative, hyper cautious even about being sort of the stewards of data and data security and all that sort of thing. Whereas, with apologies to all of our sales and marketing friends out there, we've sometimes been a little bit more comfortable with playing things a little looser, shall we say?
Loosey-goosey.
Right?
I've been to one or two sales conferences in my day. Loose is an understatement.
Right. So I think as we see more and more of these agents, and we're seeing it with ServiceNow and frankly with Salesforce too, where customers are using these agent force things
Hmm.
do internal employee facing bots where
Yeah.
they're going to the HR data, right? They're
Mm.
going to the leave policies and they're going to benefits data and they're going to these different things. Um, Obviously, there are HR vendors that are doing this from within their own technology environment as
Hmm.
well. Obviously, Oracle is doing it kind of across the board. But these things are being built outside of what is traditionally thought of the HR stack,
Yeah.
right? And boy, HR is going to need to kind of come up to speed quickly and start to take a role in putting these kind of policies and processes together and thinking about how am I training employees to use this stuff, right? Because they now need the critical thinking skills, they need differences
Yeah.
skills, they may need to look at adjacent skills for the current job as some of their current job
Yeah.
shifting.
Yeah, so we're looking probably at upskilling, reskilling, and how does that, right? How do you sort of measure that and add certifications and all that stuff?
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I think we could spend another half hour, fire alarms or not, talking about sort of skilling and what that looks like going forward. But I'm sure you're talking a lot of folks about kind of what that looks like as I think about
Yeah.
knowledge management and kind of skill
Yeah.
adjacency.
Yeah, because even myself, right? I mean, I am because with AI, there's so many different announcements, news. I mean, every week is like something new. Like if you miss a week or one day of announcements, you're behind in AI, right? There's all these upgrades to large language models and new
Yeah.
thinking models. I mean, there's so much stuff, so much news going on. I mean, I'm spending time now reading through actual research papers. I'm like, what am I in school now? So I'm doing my own sort of reskilling and upskilling like on a weekly basis. It's crazy. I'm no more fun on a Friday night, let me tell you. But yeah, reading research papers, really, dude. Like, who am I anymore, right? But yeah, but you have to sort of keep up to date. And so I can imagine for an employee at any given organization having to stay up to date because again, we, now we realize AI is not gonna it's not gonna replace jobs, right? But it's gonna augment behavior. But in augmenting that behavior, the humans themselves are gonna need to reskill and upskill.
Hmm. Yeah. And I have to think about how I'm going to like incentivize people as well, right? Because if
Yeah.
I'm a customer service agent and I've always been focused on closing cases as quickly as possible, if
Mm-hmm.
AI is giving me an answer that enables me to close that case more quickly,
Yes.
do I just take that at face value or do I really look at that critically, even though given my current incentive structure, I get pinged for taking the extra time to look and see if that answer is actually right or not?
Yes, exactly. And depending on the industry, that right answer is critical and regulatory influenced.
Oh, that brings up a really important point too that I've been talking to folks about, Dave, and I'd love to get your kind of thoughts on this. Is I think we set a pretty low bar with generative AI
Mm-hmm.
around accuracy, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
sort of because there were so many screw ups early on, it was like if you didn't tell me to put glue on my pizza, like thumbs up. That's a correct answer,
Yeah.
right? But the reality is it's a lot more nuanced than that. And you mentioned like in industries where you've got to be correct. What
Yeah.
does correct mean? Right. And
Yeah.
particularly in the customer service and the customer experience setting, where the correct answer may always be to tell Biscuit doesn't get free shipping from chewing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
That may technically be, oh, Biscuit didn't like that.
yeah. He's like, what, what, what?
Technically be the correct answer. But if Biscuit is really a good customer, maybe we
Yeah.
give Biscuit free returns sometimes when we wouldn't give them to Patrick, right? So I think as we think about sort of the ability of agents to augment human agents,
Yeah.
that sort of it's not always going to be a yes or no answer. And
Yeah, yeah.
when the policy says it's a no, there
Mhm.
needs to be a way for us to say, can the agent reason out an exception if a customer
Yeah.
asks for one? And it can't always just be, let me kick you back to the human agents
Hmm.
make that exception.
Yeah, and I think to even answer your question further, and you're sort of alluding to this, is it's yeah. So we want accuracy, but it's the explainability, right? Especially depending on the industry. I need to be able to tell you and explain why I came to this particular result. Especially if you think again back to financial services, or
Yeah.
I need to be able to explain why, this is the outcome.
Right. And I think too, that's why some of the most adoption we've seen, at least with the agentic stuff that is
Yeah.
not human in the loop at this point, has been on internal use cases, has been
Mm,
more
okay.
on the employee stuff. Um,
Yes.
because A, I have a smaller universe of correct responses to questions,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? It tends to be very data bound and rules based. But also, I'm less likely to have something kind of go wrong at scale in a way that's touching
Hmm.
customers in a way that's going to have an outsized impact.
Yeah. Yeah. So, interesting question. Where
Yeah.
then do we go? Do we, because if you cover a lot on the EX side and CX as well too, but and
Yeah.
we cover both. But where does then management for AI agents reside? Right. So it's not actually an HR issue. So is there some sort of hybrid governance between HR, IT? I mean, where do you see this? Especially thinking about going forward Q2 and beyond. Where does governance and management lie here?
Well, I think it's interesting that unlike most other departments within an organization, if I think kind of at a high level,
Mm-hmm.
HR is really the only one that's had an HRIS function that was specific
Yes.
to HR,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I know that HRIS tends to get a bad rap, mostly because a lot of those folks are stuck in sort of the legacy systems work and that sort of thing. But I'm wondering if it isn't a new opportunity for a new generation of HRIS folks that are looking at a more modern approach to talent, skills across the enterprise. What skills can be best replicated by
Yeah.
AI agents? What skills do we need to add to our existing talent pool to make them
Mm-hmm.
better able at working in that kind of
Yeah.
AI assisted environment? And how do I govern and manage this stuff? Because you're right. I mean, today we're seeing things like, the testing and monitoring tools are coming very much from the vendor side, from a
Mm-hmm.
tech perspective, not necessarily from a culture, from a process, from a people
Right.
perspective. If you look at what the folks at user testing are doing, it's really, really interesting as they're thinking about how do you use some of their tools and technologies to test, manage, evaluate on an ongoing basis what customers are doing with AI. Because once I put it out there, it's a little bit too late to be saying, oh, is this not just
Yeah.
correct technically, but is this a good experience for my employer or for my customer?
Right. Right. So I never thought about the HRIS function, but that's interesting. You're right. Yeah. And even in some forward-thinking organizations, there was always sort of an IT function within HR. Yes, that's interesting. I never thought through that before. That's a good point. That's a really good point. What do you think,
So
Biscuit?
I think it's a really interesting thing to think about. And I think remember when Sarah Franklin at Lattice put out the post? It was basically like what, a year and a half ago now, where she was talking about so Lattice does like talent performance management.
Mm-hmm.
She was talking about using something like Lattice to do talent and performance management for AI agents, and
I
people
didn't
got
see that.
really
Okay.
really upset. Um,
Really?
I think they got upset partly because of what we've just been talking about, that
Yeah.
HR isn't necessarily ready to talk about AI in this way, to think
Mm-hmm.
about AI in this way. I think
Yeah.
she was provocative and prescient, which is not always two good things to be to a more conservative kind of HR audience.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Interesting.
But
Yeah.
when I talk to HR leaders now, and even at HR Tech in Europe, where I was speaking with, the head of number of different organizations that are thinking very creatively about skills and talent. They're all thinking
Mm-hmm.
about how do we take this sort of fact that we've always been deeply rooted in the data and understanding the data. How do we
Mm-hmm.
take that as a strength for our organization and navigate how we deal with
Yeah.
AI? So I think there are folks that are out there, they're doing it.
Yeah, and that's one of the big things too in terms of AI, and I think we're seeing a data revolution as well too. Obviously one of the big things that the drawbacks for people trying to uh, create a strategy for AI is that they have to clean the data up, right? They have to aggregate their data, and that's been a lot of the issues of people sort of getting off the ground because they're like, whoa, where did the CRM system come from? They find long old CRM systems like in a corner somewhere, and so like how do we get our data even together to even begin
Right.
our AI journey?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Which is where the integration stuff becomes so important.
Yeah, which I think so. Speaking of the conferences we had, I think the Zoho Day conference probably was one of the key ones where we saw, and also TDX, a focus on integrating into existing systems
Yeah. I mean,
and
and
getting
certainly,
contextual insights. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, and obviously, Zoho has the capability to be able to provide a lot of different tools across a lot of different applications for the organization. But I think the way they're
hmm
thinking about AI and layering in and having that data strategy, of course, with a focus on security and privacy and governance, those
yeah,
key things that are really they're really technically strong at. Um,
yeah, yeah, and it helps to have, I guess, a core platform that's in context, right, with their own AI engine that's sort of seamlessly going throughout to provide that context too. So I think, and even when we went to the TDS conference, they're talking about, okay, how do we bring in and play nicely? If we're the platform, bring in and integrate with other existing systems. So that's going to be, I think, going forward. You mentioned what's the next steps going forward. I think Q2 and beyond is going to be on integration and bringing context into existing systems.
yeah, I mean, if you look at like what Visier is doing in the HR talent analytics space, exact
Yeah.
same thing, right? Looking at how can we be the platform where we're pulling in data and information
hmm
effectively so that HR has real time access to data and information, and not just HR, but line of business as well. And I
Exactly.
think that traditionally that's been the challenge, as you said, with the HRIS stack, whereas it's like, I need to know something about my people. And you're like, great, send a
Yeah.
note off to the business analyst and
Yeah.
you'll have your report. Right. And the reality is nobody's thinking on those kind of timeframes anymore.
Yeah, yeah, and gosh, so I think we talked before about a couple of the conferences that we didn't attend in person. But like, there was Adobe Summit. I'm
Right.
going next to Canva Create. There's a
Okay.
Figma conference later on in the spring as well too. So we're also seeing AI begin to impact industries like creative and design industries as well too. So we're interested to see how agents sort of work in sort of creative scenarios and who gets credit for creating works. There's a whole bunch of stuff that we can get into probably in future episodes as well too about AI in different parts of the workplace.
No, perfect. And I'm sure, between ServiceNow coming up with knowledge, Oracle, there's Tableau coming up as well. So a
That's right. Oh,
ton
and
more
you'll be
stuff
there in person, right? At the
Tableau.
Tableau. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna do that.
So
But
speaking of like like analytics, that's a huge topic. BI and analytics.
yeah, yeah. And bringing all the data together. And if you look at even like what Salesforce is doing with customer experience intelligence, saying I've got to be
hmm
able to bring all this data together from every different channel to even begin to
Yes.
have that data foundation that I need to do agentic AI really well. And
Yeah.
obviously they're not
Exactly.
the only ones. They're not the only ones moving in that direction.
No, but yeah, that's a huge and obviously Salesforce, Tableau, that's their thing. So yeah, going back to the whole thing about context, right? We're seeing two vendors that we've talked to now in terms of Zoho and Salesforce. We're sort of focusing on that more contextual because they have their hands in so many different workflows within the organization, right? Whether it's the actual data analytics or how that impacts sales, marketing, and so forth.
Yeah, and I think too what Zoho has done with CRM for everyone, sort of saying, there's a lot of things that happen that are customer adjacent, that are CRM
Yeah,
adjacent, that people need to have visibility into. That doesn't necessarily mean I need another system or another workflow, but I can add
yeah,
people, provide more people with more visibility and more access into information.
absolutely. This has been fun. So, what do you think, Biscuit? Had a good time
Okay.
with your buddy Patrick?
I know we only have a few minutes left, but that means it's crunch time, right?
Oh gosh, no, crunch time. Hold on. Cue crunch time. Woo! All right,
All right, so
yeah,
Patrick has a few questions for Biscuit.
go for it.
What's your first question, P? What's your favorite time of day?
Ooh, Biscuit's favorite time of day is, tell him, morning. Because at 5 a.m. every morning, Biscuit barks and wakes me up to take him outside.
He does not, seriously?
Not just to go pee, he wants a walk. I mean, I'm talking a full-on walk around the block.
Oh, yeah. No, we don't do that. Patrick's is nighttime because he gets to go to sleep with mom.
Aww.
What is Biscuit's favorite treat?
I may have the only dog in the universe. I don't like treats. Biscuit does not do treats, like, at all. Like, you'll give him a treat, he'll look at you like, what's that? And walk away. Like,
Well, Patrick works for treats.
So, I call Biscuit the diva dog. He does like hugs. So, yes.
Oh,
this
can we
is the
see a
diva
hug?
dog.
Can we see a
Yes.
hug?
Biscuit likes to be held and cuddled. He loves that stuff.
What is Biscuit's favorite toy?
So Biscuit has so along the lines of the treat thing, Biscuit does not like toys. He's a very interesting dog.
Interesting. So Patrick's favorite is lamb chop. He has about
Lamb
7 of them because we regularly have to reenact crime scene
Yeah.
investigations here. He's enjoyed them a little too much, and they go to the closet for a timeout until I can sew them up.
So while he doesn't have a favorite toy, he does have a favorite sort of bed that I should have it right here now on my lap, where he'll just go to this one bed, which is not really a bed. It was actually a little doggy house, but he turned into a bed. He would never go into it. He likes to go on top of it. That's yeah, it's like
Oh boy. Well, I think both Patrick and Biscuit have pretty good lives.
Oh yeah, like I said, diva dog right here, diva dog.
The little prince here, and we'll have to get them. We'll have to get them together IRL time soon.
Absolutely,
But,
yes, indeed.
Dave, this was fun.
This was absolutely fun. Yeah, we should do this more often.
Absolutely,
Right,
great to catch up with you.
awesome.
Great to see you, Biscuit. We'll see you soon. Thanks everybody for joining.
Thanks
Have
for
a
joining us,
great
guys.
afternoon.
See you next time.
See you next time.
Bye bye.